what what is today? September something. It's Wednesday. It's time for the next the September that says July. That is wrong. It's actually September. So I'm sorry for YouTube people. You thinking you started the wrong video, but this is the September meeting. We've got a good show for you tonight, I hope. After some announcements and reminders, Byrne is going to be returning. One of our favorite speakers to talk about what's new in space, and I believe what's new on Mars a little bit. Demeter will be showcasing member astro photos and sketches. I'll spend just a minute on the moon. John Pinto, our astronomical mathematician, is going to talk about computing the September equinox. Yay, equinox! It means, the nights are getting shorter, longer, which is great for us nighttime astronomers. Sharife, who we could almost dub the CFAS reporter, a space reporter ourselves, went to SpaceFest in Arizona. I was very jealous of her Facebook posts, and so she's going to give us an update and a little review of her trip out there for that. Hoin is going to spend a few minutes or several minutes, as he says, on the sun, and then to the end, we're going to talk about, Derek's going to talk about some stuff with the Astro-imaging channel. Okay, so this weekend star party. So you may have missed. I'm going to. This is very awkward. Sorry. Like I said, I just got out of a work meeting, so I didn't have a chance to get kind of ramped up or even to change my slides before the meeting. But we were planning to have a star party this weekend, Friday and Saturday, and we were gonna have by 4 o'clock we were gonna call it. However, there's a big high pressure system, and there's not a chance that we're gonna get clear skies. And even if it wasn't clear, we could get together and talk, but it's probably going to rain, or there's going to be scattered rain, and setting up equipment and getting rained on is not going to be great for anybody. So rather than make you wait till Friday to tell you that you can't, to plan something for your weekend, me and Derek, the observing chair, were talking about this earlier today, and I thought it would be better to just go ahead and let everybody know now. It's the weekend's not looking good. Why don't we just go ahead and call it so that you can make other plans? We are going to try this again next month, though. So what I'm about to talk about coming up this weekend is actually going to happen next month. And just some reminders about the weekend story. It's only, so it's not a general public event. We're not going to have hordes of people coming in wanting to look through your telescopes. So we're trying to do this as a model of, informed, scientifically minded people doing an outdoor event together. And and we haven't been able to get together to do anything for so long. So we thought it'd be a better to have a nice social event just for CFAS members. This does not mean family, guests, dates, etc. can't come. It just means we're not going to release the hounds and have Sharife spamming Twitter and Facebook and everything to get the public coming to the event. It'll be Friday and Saturday night. It'll be October, I think it's 9th and 10th. I've got the dates exactly on a few more slides. The days of the event, if it looks iffy, we're going to make a call by 4 o'clock to let you know if it's going to rain. Right now it looks, we can make the call a little earlier for this coming weekend. Watch Groups.io and Facebook for that. If we're all go, show up anytime after 6 o'clock next to the planetarium to set up your gear, set up your partitions or whatnot, and get things ready. Shut down. I've got a question mark here. I meant to update my slides as well. We're going to run until about midnight. After about midnight, we need to clear out. Derek, as is the school representative. Plus, we're going to do it for 2 nights in a row. We don't want to keep him out till dawn every time. We are going to require masks when visiting other scopes, and of course, maintain social distancing when not at the scope appropriate. And we're going to ask everybody now, respect other people's comfort levels. We are not going to we're not going to debate CDC or WHO or vaccine guidelines or any of that stuff. These are the rules. Some of it's instituted by the college as well, but you will need to be, we will have to social distance, and you will have to be masked. And we've got people who, their comfort level still, for whatever reasons, they may not be comfortable at all, and they may stay home. We have people who may be on the edge of comfort, and if they come and they're on the edge of comfort and they've set up, say, a space around their scope, and they don't want anybody coming too close to them, I would ask everybody to respect that. Don't make it awkward for anybody, and we can keep doing these sorts of things as we need to. If you think this is all bunk and you want to start a fight with somebody, come and see me or come and see somebody on the board. Please don't take it out on your fellow CFAS members or someone who, for whatever their reasons, wants to be careful. Plus, secondary conditions, blah, blah, blah. I sometimes I get kind of angry about that because, my or your secondary medical history is nobody's business. If somebody's wearing a mask, before the pandemic, my doctor fussed at me because I had the flu. She said, put this mask on, don't go anywhere without this mask on, go home and don't leave the house. And that was just for bird flu. So, nobody accosted me in the store and said, why are you wearing a mask? Nobody else is wearing a mask. I had a medical issue and I was wearing a mask, and frankly, it's nobody's business. And of course, now with COVID, we think everybody's business is out. Never mind. I'm going off on the deep end there. Just respect everybody's comfort levels. And if we all act like adults and respect each other, then we'll have a great time, and we can keep having great times moving down the road. If you are, so we're October 10th and 11th. So that's the next weekend we're going to try this. It's also the Friday and Saturday right after our monthly CFAS meeting in October. So that's it on the Star Party. Members of the board, if anybody is asking anything in the chat or the Q&A, don't hesitate to interrupt me. I can't watch that and be on the jazz at the same time, so I usually miss those things. But like I said, don't hesitate to interrupt me if you need to. For the Star Party, we're going to ask you to help test our new RSVP system. We're going to start doing this for some of our events so we can get an idea ahead of time of how many people are coming. When we can return to the planetarium, we may have some limitations imposed on us as far as how many people we can have in there, and we may have to have a reservation system. We're up to 135 members. The club has never been so strong as far as membership goes, and we normally don't have everybody coming to the planetarium, but we can't fit 100 planetarium. And as our membership grows, it may be an issue. We may even have to look at meeting, someplace larger on campus than the planetarium dome. But the RSVP system will help us gauge that and let us know too. 3 people are coming. Well, maybe we should just, not have the event, or, we're at capacity and we have to cut it off and we can't have other people coming in. This is the part where I would be pasting a link to this in the chat box for our Star Party this weekend. But since it's not going to happen, we'll try that again next time. Just a reminder that official CFAS communications are through Groups.io. If you're not a member, here's the link, cfas.groups.io. You can just go to the website and there's links there too. I believe almost all of the membership is on the Groups.io, thanks to John Frank, who's been really evangelizing and mailing people and reminding them. Most people are on that, and they're going to see notices about things that are going out. We also are on Facebook. All of our members are not on Facebook. Some people don't like Facebook for different reasons, most of them good. And so we don't want Facebook to be our official means of communication. For those watching via YouTube after the fact, if you want to know more about CFAS, you can visit our website. You can also join the Central Florida Astronomical Society on our website. And actually, I should say our award-winning website. Big round of applause for Frank Kane and Francisco because they were first runner-ups in the 2021 Astronomical League Webmaster Award. Which is pretty cool. Somebody nominated the website, and first runner-up is pretty nice. So I think it's a great website, nice and minimal, not too cluttered. There's a great XCD comic about websites not long ago. I encourage you to look that up. People go nuts with websites sometimes. So that's pretty nice that our hardworking members of the board, got some recognition outside of CFAS. So that's pretty cool. Thank you, Frank and Francisco. Speaking of awards, our own William Castro also completed his Sketching Observing Award for the Astronomical League. I had the pleasure of previewing all 75 of his sketches. Actually, he had a little over 75 sketches. And we've seen Will's sketches during our Astrophotos and Sketches segment, and I've tried doing some sketching myself, usually to everyone's amusement. And I believe Bill has some sketches coming up tonight as well. But that's quite an achievement, quite a bit of time, quite a time investment on his part. I've been complaining and whining about the bad weather all summer, and meanwhile, we've got a member who's finding a way to get all of these sketches in. So I think that's really great. Also coming up in October, just a preview, October is also CFAS elections. So it's time to elect or re-elect board members. Just for a reminder and for new members to let you know, we have 4 main elected positions: president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. And we also have 2 elected board members at large. All of the positions except board member at large are for 1 year, and then you get reelected the next year if you're willing to keep running. The board member at large positions last for 2 years, and they stagger. So each year there's 1 new board member at large coming in, and 1 board member at large going out. Usually the outgoing board member at large is the one who runs the election. And this year that is Frank Kane, who's our outgoing board member at large, and he's going to be running the election. We do have a tentative slate. Most of the board members have agreed to stick around if you'll have us. Myself as president, Tricia Smedley as vice president, Ken Allingham as treasurer, and Denise Woody as secretary. And for board member at large, we have a nomination for John Pinto, who did not run screaming when he was told that he was nominated for that position. Board member at large is a great way to get involved with the board. Just if you're thinking about running for, maybe you want to be president one day, get on the board and kind of get your feet wet and see how things are going. Large is a great way to do that. The board member, of course, is the liaison between the membership and the board. Sometimes the board members people find us intimidating. I have no idea why. I'm very approachable. But they can go to the board members at large for that sort of thing. If you are interested in one of these positions, don't let us throw you off by saying that we're still running. We haven't had a good contest in a while where somebody was running against somebody on the board, but you could certainly throw your name in the hat if you want. If so, contact Frank Kane. He is our board member at large too at cfas.org. And he will be running that. Also, a couple other things about the board. We have a couple of open committee positions. These are not elected positions. You basically just have to talk to me or the board and say, hey, that looks interesting. I think I could help out with CFAS in this way. The scientific activities chair has been empty for, I think, over a decade. We have many CFAS members who are doing scientific research with variable stars or other sorts of studies. And we don't have anybody coordinating that or maybe promoting or evangelizing that within the organization. If doing science is something that you really want to see CFAS doing more of, here's your chance to join the board and take one of these one of these chair positions. Also, our education chair, Anna Mecke, is stepping down this season. So we have an opening for the education chair as well. And that's a lot of it. I don't want to scare anybody off, but it's being on the board is a bit of work. Lots of people have great ideas, but the people on the board are the people who actually make things happen. So if you want to see things happen, this is your chance. Join the board and make it happen. Don't sit around and go, well, they should do this, they should do that. Well, help us out. Join the board and do this and that. We'd be happy to give you the support you need and help CFAS, while we're at it at the same time. Also, Board members are actually open to all members. It's not a closed board meeting. We've never had a board meeting with 50 people show up. They're all via Zoom. But if you want to come to a board meeting just to see what's going on, or to eavesdrop, or maybe there's something you want to bring to the board to talk about, you've got an idea or a proposal, you're perfectly welcome to come to do so. Contact me or any of the board members, and we'll make sure you get a Zoom link. The board meetings occur the Wednesday before the general meetings, also at 7 o'clock. And we're doing that also via Zoom, so everybody can do it from home, and saves lots of time. And wow, that's 15 minutes worth of announcements. I hope I haven't put anybody to sleep, because the main show, let's get this going. Brandon is up next. Brandon, are you ready to rock? I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
I am. Are you able to hear me?
Take it away.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Richard. I appreciate the introduction. And Tricia, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. That should be working. So as Richard mentioned, I cover space for your local public radio station, WMFE, and also contribute to NPR's national programming. And I thought I would come in and talk a little bit about just everything that's happening in space right now. This seems to be a very busy time for the space community, and especially folks that cover space and are interested in it. So we're going to talk about some of the cool things that are happening. We'll start closer to home, and then we'll move farther out into our solar system. And I did build in some time for some questions. So if you guys have anything that you'd like to ask, just feel free to put in the chat, and hopefully one of the hosts can just jump in and interrupt me here. So the first thing that I'm super excited about that's happening on Wednesday is the Inspiration-4 mission. This is an all-civilian mission that will be flying in SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule on an orbital flight for about 3 days. And this is kind of a really cool story. These are the 4 crew that are actually going to be going to space. The fellow there, third from the left, is Jared Isaacman. He's a billionaire who founded a payment processing company called Shift4 Payments. And he chartered this SpaceX Crew Dragon flight from SpaceX and Elon Musk, and decided to bring some folks along with him. The woman over his right shoulder there is Haley Arsenault. She's a physician's assistant from St. Jude's Children's Hospital. She's a childhood cancer survivor, and she's also she's got a prosthesis, so she'll be the first person to fly with a prosthetic leg in space, which I think is really cool. Over to Jared's left is Dr. Cyan Proctor. She's a geologist and also a NASA astronaut candidate who did not make the final cut, but has done some really great outreach work in the space community, and is going to get her chance to fly to space as well. She won a contest through Shift4 Payments to get her spot on this mission. And then all the way on our left there is Chris, and I always forget his last name, but he's an aerospace engineer, and he basically won a raffle raising money for St. Jude to get on this flight. So these are all people that are not trained to be astronauts, at least before they got their mission assignment. They're kind of regular, ordinary people, and they're going to get a chance to fly to space, which I think is really cool. And this happened rather quickly, actually. This was announced in February or April of this year, and the crew began training almost immediately for this. And they've done all sorts of different training, from climbing Mount Rainier to running through a 30-hour simulation in the Crew Dragon capsule for this mission. So let's talk a little bit about the mission itself. They're going to be flying in a modified Crew Dragon capsule. The Crew Dragon was designed for NASA's Commercial Crew Program. It has most recently launched a crew of 4 astronauts to the International Space Station and back. But this particular vehicle has been outfitted to carry these 4 astronauts to low Earth orbit, where they'll spend 3 days. For anybody interested, the orbital inclination is 51.8 degrees, and they're spending 3 days just a little bit higher than where the Hubble Space Telescope currently orbits, which is super cool. So higher than the ISS, and they're going to have this cupola installed where the docking port would be for a NASA mission. So they will have these incredible views from orbit. So there's Haley there in a mock-up, a trainer of the cupola there looking out, which I think is really neat. So this is the first all civilian mission for SpaceX, and it really just shows the adaptability that SpaceX has when it comes to the Crew Dragon capsule. The Dragon capsule was designed to take astronauts to the International Space Station and back, and now will be used to take these folks into space. And in a few months, another Crew Dragon capsule will also take another group of space tourists to the International Space Station and back home. So a very, very exciting mission. This will hopefully launch on Wednesday, September 15th. Right now, the launch window is about 24 hours. They're going to start narrowing that window down to about, I think, a 4 or 6 hour window over the weekend. They don't really have anything to rendezvous with, so they can kind of launch whenever, but the closer they can get that window, the better. So we should know a little bit more when they're actually going to launch over the weekend. I talked to one of the mission photographers who's a local here, John Kraus, if anybody's ever followed rocket photography, but he's hoping that the launch window will be in the morning to get some of the best images. So we shall see. So definitely keep your eye on this. I've been covering this mission pretty much since last week on the radio show and podcast I host, Are We There Yet? So you can hear from John, the photographer, you can hear about the crew, and kind of hear about the implications of this mission if you follow my reporting there. So that's a really, really fun mission that's coming up. I think another fun mission that will really excite all of you astronomy fans is the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope. This is an image that was just recently shared, and I love it because it just shows you how big this darn thing is. I mean, this is a massive space telescope that is super intricate and going to be so cool. It's been long delayed and over budget, as most of these space-based telescopes tend to be. But we did get a launch date from NASA. It's targeting now something no earlier than December 18th. And that is very exciting. It's going to be launching on an Ariane 5 rocket from French Guiana after a deal that was brokered with NASA and the European Space Agency to launch this. The Ariane 5 rocket has had some issues over the past few launches, but it did recently have a successful launch. And there is one more launch of the Ariane 5 that will happen before James Webb launches, and that will make NASA feel a little more comfortable with putting this once in a lifetime, multi-billion-dollar piece of hardware on top of a controlled explosion and send it into space. I don't think I have to talk too much about the importance of this observatory for this particular crowd, but you all know that it is going to be bringing some really cool images back to Earth, looking at the infrared, looking farther and deeper than we've ever seen before in our universe. But to do that, it's to fit inside the Ariane 5 fairing. It has to be folded up, so the mirrors are actually folded up, and its giant sunscreen is folded up as well. So that's kind of been some of the issues with the delay of the launch, is the unfolding process. They reached some snags, pun intended there, on getting that unlocked. So everything seems to be good now. It's being transported via boat down to French Guiana to meet its December 18th launch date, and I'm very, very excited to see this fly. I've had the chance to talk to a lot of the folks that work on this mission, and it is just a beautiful telescope that is going to just bring us some incredible images. So that is something very, very exciting for me. Another space story I wanted to talk about is space tourism. This has been the summer of suborbital space tourism. We see here, this is Sir Richard Branson flying in Spaceship Two. That is his company, Virgin Galactic's space tourism vehicle. And he successfully flew this, I believe it was back in July. And also right afterwards, we had the launch of Jeff Bezos in his Blue Origin spacecraft. This was definitely an interesting mission, and there has been some very interesting developments that have come out of this mission since then. There was some reporting in the New Yorker that found that there was a serious problems with Richard Branson's flight. One of the, let's see if I can explain this. This particular spacecraft is flown by human pilots. And there was a error or a warning light that came on that basically said they were going to miss their trajectory. And the way that this vehicle flies to space or the edge of space is it is dropped from the belly of an airplane, and then it kind of flies horizontally a bit, and then the rockets fire, and then it fires vertically to get it to the altitude that it needs to get to the edge of space. It kind of does this backflip, and then it comes back down. It needs to be in a certain trajectory cone for this to happen. And the reason for that is it has engines to get up, but it glides on the way back. So if you're not in this particular trajectory, you run the risk as the pilot of the spacecraft of missing your glide cone back and possibly not landing where you're supposed to land, which would not be a good thing, especially if you're carrying your boss, Richard Branson, in the back. Well, right before they went to launch, it was reported that this air light turned orange, and then it turned to red, which meant that these pilots should have aborted the mission. They did not. And they ended up flying. They did not miss their landing on the way back, but it was revealed that they were out of their flight path for up to, I believe, 2 minutes. Their FAA-approved flight path, which was not, it's not a very good thing if you're trying to abide by the law. So the FAA actually grounded the vehicle as they continue this investigation. And this is a big deal because there are hundreds of people that have signed on to fly on Virgin Galactic, upwards of $400,000 per seat. It's been billed as this luxury space brand where the rich can get their moments in space. But this most recent incident kind of uncovered these layers of risk and a safety culture at Virgin Galactic. There's some great reporting from the New Yorker's Nick Schmidl about this in the most recent New Yorker that really shows that, you know, the company would rather sweep things under the rug than face these issues head on. And it really shows just how important it is for folks to understand what's happening. So that conversation I had with the reporter was on my most recent episode of Are We There? And if you are interested in this story, I would go and listen to it. But it's very interesting to see what will come out of this investigation. Virgin Galactic has already said that they were going to take about 8 months off to perform some different diagnostics and do some upgrades to the fleet. But there is a mission with some Israeli astronauts coming up. And so far the manifest hasn't changed. So it will be interesting to see what happens to Virgin Galactic and whether or not those safety issues are taken care of. I don't have an image here, but Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin is also taking some time off before it flies more passengers. I'm sure we all followed the flight of Jeff Bezos and his brother and Wally Funk. But the vehicle actually flew without a crew recently and performed some suborbital science experiments, which is really cool. Some of those experiments were from UCF, from NASA, which goes to show that, you know, both of these suborbital companies are going to be taking, rich people to the edge of space as tourists, but they also are another platform for some suborbital science. So we can go ahead and be optimistic and call the glass half full here and see that, despite these aren't just billionaire, toys, there's a platform for actual science happening on them. So that's super exciting. Another thing that's very exciting that's coming closer and closer to fruition is the first launch of NASA's SLS rocket. And this is a part of NASA's Artemis program. I can see there was, that wasn't for me. I was just checking the chat real quick there. The Artemis program is NASA's new moonshot. As I'm sure most of us know, Artemis in mythology is the twin sister of Apollo, but the Artemis missions won't be following in the exact footsteps of Apollo. They'll be heading to the polar regions of the moon, which hold some really exciting science for the scientific community, and it's a place that humans have never explored before. So on the left-hand side of the screen there, you see the Orion capsule. I'm not sure if you can see my pointer here, but that is the Orion capsule. You can see the green part there, and that's part of the Orion capsule here. And then this entire part is the launch abort system that's being stacked with the capsule. And then on the left-hand side there, you can see that stacking is complete inside the vehicle assembly building of that massive core stage that will hold the propellant and the oxidizer, and then those two solid rocket boosters on the side of it there. So what's going to happen next is they're going to fully integrate this rocket at the vehicle assembly building. It is already on the mobile launch platform. So those crawlers from the Apollo era and also from the space shuttle era will go underneath it and bring it out to Launch Complex 39B, and they'll do what's called a wet dress rehearsal. So they'll actually fill those tanks up with the propellant and the oxidizer, run through some scenarios, give the launch team a chance to go through it and do all of their tests. Then they'll bring it back into the vehicle assembly building, run some final checkouts before launching Artemis 1. Now, Artemis 1 will be uncrewed, so the Orion capsule won't have anyone in it, and it'll go on a sort of a free return trajectory to the moon and back. So this is really just to test out the system of Orion and the Space Launch System, the rocket, to see if it can handle future lunar missions. Following that, we'll have Artemis 2, which will actually put a crew inside the module. They'll head to the moon and back. And then Artemis 3 will be the mission that will send humans to a miniature space station that will be in place around the moon. Orion will dock with that, and then the astronauts will board a lander and head down to the surface of the moon. Now, what's been real interesting in space news recently is the drama around the human landing system. NASA asked for proposals from companies to design and develop this, and there were 3 different companies that ended up getting to the final stage of bidding. One of them was SpaceX, the other was a company called Dynetics, and then another one was a group called the National Team, which included Blue Origin, Lockheed Martin, and some other legacy companies. And NASA, in a strange move, ended up just picking one of those providers, and it was SpaceX. Excuse me. And NASA said the reason for this was funding. They only had enough money to fund the development of one lander. They selected SpaceX's Starship as a lander. It is a single-stage lander. You can kind of see just how big it is in this mock-up here. Those are astronauts there halfway up the side of this thing here. And it's been quite controversial. Blue Origin has protested the bid. They're suing NASA because they were left out of it. But at this point, NASA says, we can only pick one, and until we get more funding, this is the case. So I believe it's the first 3 landers will be designed and built by SpaceX, and then future landers can be picked by by NASA in the future. So SpaceX is developing its Starship system to go to Mars and to colonize Mars. That's always been their plan. And they are working on some testing on this. If anyone follows space, you've probably seen some testing, but I do want to watch a quick video from what was called SN10, which was a test flight of a prototype of the Starship a few months ago. This one unfortunately exploded, but you can actually see what it does. And this vehicle will launch, it launches vertically. It has the ability to belly flop so that it can control itself, and then it can land vertically, which is what NASA is very interested in for moon landings. So we're going to go ahead and take a watch of this. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it, but at least we can see this take flight. This is actual hardware flying out of SpaceX's facility in Boca Chica, Texas. So let's go ahead and take a look at this.
3, 2, 1. Ignition.
So cool stuff from SpaceX there. Make sure I am unmuted there. Yep, perfect. So yeah, so development is happening on that still. So since that particular video, they've had quite a few different successful tests, and they're working on putting some heat shielding on it. And SpaceX founder Elon Musk says they should have an orbital prototype very soon. Will it be done in time by 2024, which is when NASA is hoping they'll have Artemis 3? SpaceX says yes. We shall see if Artemis 3 is even ready for 2024. I think SpaceX will develop theirs before NASA's ready for it. So it'll be very interesting to see. A few concerns with the Starship vehicle is how it uses those Merlin engines to control its landing there. And you saw just in West Texas, or I'm sorry, in Boca Chica, Texas, there was a lot of dust that was kicked up at that landing pad. And one of the concerns is how this vehicle will kick up a lot of the lunar regolith, which some of us might know. It's not like sand here. It's very glassy. It's very abrasive, which could harm the vehicle on its way down, and it could also kind of get in the way of some of these different sensors that are being used by the vehicle itself to land itself and find out where it is. So a lot of work is being done trying to mitigate some of those issues of regolith blow up and blowback, and protecting the vehicle, and also helping those guidance systems get through it. Some of the work is being done at the University of Central Florida, which is really cool. And to tie it back to something we talked about earlier, they're using those suborbital flights from Blue Origin to test some of that technology. So very cool stuff. The stuff that's happening here on Earth is going to help us land on the moon. And finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about is Mars, and we're getting some amazing images from the surface of Mars after the Perseverance rover landed earlier this year. I had the great honor of speaking with one of your members, Derek Demeter, for an event we did this summer, looking at some of these first images that came back and some of the cool science. So I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to that stuff. Derek is going to be your go-to person for the geology of Mars. And you can also listen back to that conversation we had with Derek and UCF planetary scientist Addie Dove, and engineer Joan Melendez, who joined us as well to talk about the engineering marvels of this vehicle. And I could probably talk about the landing of this thing all night. We've all seen the videos. It's super cool. And it's starting its science campaign now, which will last quite a few sols, just at the kind of the outcropping of Jezero crater, which is where it landed. But I think one of the really, really interesting things about this mission, and what I found the most interesting, was the little stowaway that went on this, which is the Ingenuity helicopter. And this is a picture that the Perseverance rover took of Ingenuity after it dropped it off. This little tiny helicopter, it stowed away on upside down underneath the rover. It was dropped off, and then the rover drove away, and has done. Basically, it was a proof of concept that a tiny helicopter could actually fly, in the thin atmosphere of Mars, and also survive the temperature swings, between the day and night, and would be able to charge its batteries up and all that good stuff while it was there. So basically, NASA was like, you know what, we're going to put it there. We've got extra mass on the vehicle. Let's go ahead and just put it on there and see what happens. If we get one, maybe two good flights out of this thing, we'll be happy. Last I checked, it has done 13 successful flights on the surface of Mars, which is just far exceeds what anyone expected it to do. And really what this helps with is this will be incorporated into future missions to Mars. And basically a vehicle like this can be the scout of the rover. You don't want to take your rover into uncharted territory. Every centimeter that rover moves is carefully planned and debated and thought out by mission managers here. That's why exploration of other planets takes so long and goes so slow, is because you're very deliberate and intentional with everything that you do. If you got yourself a scout like this, a vehicle like this is able to fly ahead. It can run reconnaissance. It can look at the path that going forward, or look to explore places that you didn't even think to look at, that didn't show up on remote sensing imaging. So little buggers like Ingenuity are really going to change the way that we explore other worlds, and give a lot more confidence with mission managers as to the path forward that they're taking with their vehicles. So I'm very excited to see what comes from this. The mechanics behind trying to fly something in an atmosphere as thin as Mars is absolutely fascinating. I've had the chance to talk to a few of those folks for my podcast and radio show. So if you're interested in that, definitely go back and listen to those, because it really is cool. And there are other, of these helicopters planned. I believe there's one heading to Titan. Just really, really, really cool stuff happening. And finally, I'm going to end with a story that kind of had took our breath away as followers of space news. Let me take a step back. Some of the objectives of the Perseverance rover, it's mainly to look at the geology of Mars and explore Jezero crater and look at this river delta and see if there are signs of ancient life on Mars. Look at some of the ancient climate find evidence of what that was, and really do some interesting geological sciences from the surface. It's got this suite of incredible instruments, including a super cam. It also has a laser on it that has a microphone, and it will actually blast rocks and listen for the sonic profile of what those rocks are. With the microphone, it can tell what they are. There's some really cool in situ science that's happening. But one of the really, really cool things that Perseverance is doing is it's collecting a cache of samples from the surface of Mars to eventually send back to Earth on a future mission. And the way it does that is it's got a drill on it. It's got this little processing center where we'll actually take these samples, put them in these containers, and then kind of drop them behind it and then move on. And the plan is to send another mission to there to get it. And so it went to go do one of its first core samples recently, and it came up empty. And that was really disappointing for the scientific community, very disappointing for the people that are following this mission, just because that was something so exciting that's going to happen. But we got news this week, I believe it was on Labor Day, that it actually took its first sample and sealed it. And that's what it looks like here. This is actually a picture taken from the Perseverance rover's cache cam. And this is the first sample. It's about the thickness of or the width of a pencil. And it has been drilled and processed and put into this titanium tube and sealed shut. And the rover is going to drop it and leave it. And maybe something will come and pick it up in the near future. NASA is working on a plan with the European Space Agency. So as you can see, we've got the cache is happening here. The caching is here, and then the little cache box is going to be dropped on the surface. Another rover is going to have to come down onto the surface of Mars and pick up this cache. They'll bring it back to a base where they'll launch it back into Martian orbit, and then another vehicle will grab it and bring it back to Earth. So this is very, very exciting in the fact that this will be the first time we've had pristine samples from the Martian surface back on Earth. We've had samples of Mars, of Martian rock from meteors or meteorites that have hit Earth, but this will be the first time we'll have a pristine sample. You can do a lot of experimenting on the surface of Mars on these rovers, and we've done some great science looking into that, but to be able to have these samples in our hand would be great. The Apollo samples are still being looked at today. We're getting a sample return from the asteroid Bennu on OSIRIS-REx, and to have another cache of geological information and to put into our library of knowledge is just going to be incredible. So I think long term, this is probably the most exciting mission that I've been following, and I'm very excited for scientists to get their hands on these Mars rocks. I don't think I ever will come near them, but at least I can talk to the people that do. I did build in a little time so that if you had any questions, or if there's a news story that you saw that you wanted to talk about, please let me know. You can go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'm happy to discuss it. And while you're collecting your thoughts or any questions there, I'm just going to go ahead and put up my final slide here. Are We There Yet is the show that I host and produce. It's a weekly radio show and podcast, so you can tune in on Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. on 90.7 FM. Also, you can get it wherever you get your podcasts. NPR One, that's NPR's proprietary podcast platform. We also have iTunes, Spotify, Google, basically wherever you get. I actually don't think it's iTunes anymore, right? I think it's like Apple Podcasts or whatever. We're on there. Or you can also say, I won't say it too loud, but you can say, hey, the G word, because she's right behind me, or Alexa, play Are We There Yet podcast, and you'll hear the latest episode. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so we can take a look at if there's any questions coming in. Oh, we got a good one from Debbie Vaughn. And Debbie, I meant to put this into the slideshow, so thank you for bringing up. Debbie asks, will Boeing Starliner ever fly? I certainly hope so. I think just to take a step back, SpaceX's Crew Dragon is a part of NASA's Commercial Crew program. The second operator in NASA's Commercial Crew program is Boeing's Starliner. It has had quite a few issues. It launched, oh boy, I want to say the end of 2019 on an uncrewed mission to the space station and back, and there was an issue with some of the software and the timer where it wasn't able to insert into the correct orbit and meet the International Space Station. So it came back, landed safely, but NASA and Boeing wanted to see another uncrewed mission, which was supposed to happen just a few weeks ago. And there was a delay due to an issue with a Russian segment of the International Space Station. And then there was another delay while it was at the pad, and there was some lightning in the area. So Boeing did some diagnostics on the vehicle and found that the valves were stuck, and not just one, like quite a few of these valves. So they did as much diagnostics as they could. They ran out of time during the particular launch window, so they had to bring it back in. And right now, the Boeing Starliner is inside its manufacturing plant at Kennedy Space Center, and they're kind of breaking it apart to see what happens. It seems like what happens is there was some oxidation that happened in these thruster valves that corroded those valves. And so Boeing needs to figure out how to fix that and to make sure that that wouldn't have an impact on the mission. Unfortunately, the ride that Boeing was going to be taking, it flew on an Atlas V rocket. There is a upcoming launch for NASA, the Lucy mission, which is going to the Trojan asteroids. And so it has to do that. So this is a long way to answer your question, Debbie, but if they are able to figure this out, it will fly no earlier than October or November. Like I said, that Atlas V, the pad is saved for that Lucy mission, and then Boeing can go ahead and integrate and fly after that. We haven't heard too much from Boeing about where they go, so I'm not going to speculate as to whether or not they're able to fix this or figure it out. NASA really wants to have two operators here, so it's imperative that they're able to figure this out and move forward. So hopefully it will fly soon. I can't wait to see it fly because it is such a cool vehicle, but we'll just have to wait and see. So very, very good question there. Let's see, we got Frank asking, someone in the media, why do you think SpaceX gets all the attention? I mean, Starship is cool and all, but there's fully assembled SLS inside the VAB right now, and something's happening in those giant Blue Origin factories. Frank, I think you're right. SpaceX does get a lot of the attention because they are cool and flashy, and they are doing a lot of things. I think SpaceX gets a lot of attention because they're doing things so different than conventional space programs. They are progressing at such a rapid pace, something that we've never seen before. And it's all because of their testing philosophy. Their testing philosophy is blow stuff up, figure out why it blew up, and keep it from blowing up again. Whereas some of these legacy companies like Boeing, like the Lockheed Martins, like the NASAs, they do so much testing ahead of time to prevent the blowing up that when you do integrate everything, things don't blow up. And because of that, they have just flown by in their development. They're doing really cool things. They're vertically landing rockets. They're sending Starlink satellites up to space at a pace earlier this year, almost once a week. And other things are just very slow to happen. SLS has been extremely slow. I'll give you an example. SLS, they had a piece for Artemis 2 come into come at Kennedy Space Center, and then they sent out a press release saying, hey, it's here, but the picture was from a month ago. And it was because it had to go through all this bureaucratic red tape and ITAR and make sure that it was okay to release this image to the media, whereas SpaceX largely does a lot of their stuff out in the open and transparent. So it makes it much easier from someone in the media to be able to cover that when you're seeing things happen in real time. Those Starship vehicles, they blew up on YouTube. We were all watching it while it was live streaming. SpaceX isn't afraid to show that stuff where some other companies, but for good reason, especially companies like Blue Origin, don't want to share their proprietary information to their competitors. I'd love to see what's happening in those giant Blue Origin factories, but I haven't been able to see that. And if there's really nothing to see or nothing for me to report on, there's no story there. And I think that that's one of the big issues with SpaceX, or with why SpaceX gets the media attention that it gets, or others don't, is they are out in the open. Could they be more in the open? Sure. And I do get frustrated with SpaceX sometimes where they don't provide information or callbacks or whatever. But it is far better than some of the other legacy companies and organizations like NASA. So that's a good question. I appreciate that, Frank. And John's question, you talk a little bit about the Moon space station that's part of the Artemis mission. Yeah, this is really exciting. It's called Gateway, and it's in a very weird orbit that I can never pronounce. I think it's called near rectilinear halo orbit, and I don't know how that actually works in orbital mechanics. Maybe someone much smarter than me as a panelist can weigh in on that. But it's going to be a bare bones space station. So when we say space station, I think we all think of the International Space Station. You know, this sprawling facility that has labs and bedrooms and cupolas and propulsion systems and all this stuff. The Moon space station, John, is they don't even like to call it a space station. It's called the Gateway, and it's pretty much like if you think of the International Space Station as an RV, like one of those big RV buses, the Gateway is like a pop-up camper, if that. It's going to be very primitive. It's really only there to hold, supplies for astronauts for very short layover. It will host some onboard science, and then it will basically be docking ports for the Orion spacecraft and the human landing system right now, the Starship, or future vehicles to come down there. So it will have a crew in the sense that it is the visiting astronauts that will be there. So Artemis 3, I believe it's going to be 2 astronauts. They will fly in the Orion space capsule, dock to the Gateway, stay at the Gateway for a few hours, maybe a day or two, and then they will go from the Gateway to the landing system down to the lunar surface, come back up, and then go back home. So there is no kind of habitation module in its first iteration. We will not be sending a crew there and then leaving. They won't be there for an extended period of time. It's really just kind of like a mudroom. It's where you can put your stuff down, put on your new suits, and get into your landing system and head down to the surface of the Moon. Now, some long-term goals are to have some crews that will live on a habitat on the surface of the Moon. And NASA has been kind of preliminarily talking about that. But for the time being, the Gateway will only just be a place for you to kind of take your shoes off very briefly, change your clothes, and then head down to the lunar surface. So very good question. Thank you, John. I meant to bring that up when I was talking about it in the slide. So I'm here if you got any other questions. If not, I'm happy to turn it back over. I do have to say thank you again for the invitation to chat with you all. Richard, it's always great to be here, and I love what this organization does for the community and outreach. And I can't wait for you all to get back out there and do what you do, because it really is just a vital service that you provide to kind of inspire the next generation of people to look up and see some really cool things in the sky. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. It's always great to have you on, and you speak so authoritatively and knowledgeable. I wonder if there's maybe a career where you could talk to people about space stuff all the time that you could present.
You know
But
what? If you
we
find it
can
out, please let me know, Richard.
Great. Well, thank you again for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Great deal. Okay, so that is our main program. We'll get to our member mini programs, starting with Derek Demeter, who is our curator of astrophotos and sketches from members. I hope you all sent them into Derek. Sharife, when she sends out the notice every month, it includes Derek's email. So if you're doing any kind of astrophotography or sketching, please send them in so that we can show them to other members. All skill levels. We want people who are just getting started, and we want people who are also experts. But we all start in the same place, and all of our images are, when we look back on them, we think they're terrible, or we may not have much confidence. Well, we need some beginner images too, and I hope that'll encourage everybody to get out there and do some things, or even just sketching. I still enjoy sketching a little bit. For nothing else other than it just makes me study what I'm looking at a lot closer. And maybe I'll go back to posting. Maybe I'll get back to some sketching if we ever get some decent weather for it. Derek, if you're ready, I'm just going to shut up and let you take over.
All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry you're not being able to see me tonight. My light here is not working, so it's really dark. So it's all good. You only need to really hear me anyways, because I'm gonna be sharing my screen with all of you. So like we usually do, for those that are joining us for the first time, we are going to go through a series of images that we're taking, and sketches that were taken by fellow members of the Central Florida Astronomical Society. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring up the participants' information here, and I'm going to go ahead and for those that aren't actual panelists, if you're just watching via the webinar, if you do see your image, I will give you authorization to be unmuted, so you can unmute yourself and just give a little brief description, a little information about the image if you like to do that. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first image tonight. This first image is brought to us by, let's see here, I think I saw him earlier. Maybe he logged off already. It looks like, yes, unfortunately, it looks like we have, he has logged off right now. But this image has come from David Murray. And this image is taken from the Bull Creek area, which is one of our dark sky locations nearby. This is one of his Milky Way photos that he submitted of that location. And for those that have never been to Bull Creek is a fantastic location that is within about an hour and a half drive for most people. So it's a lot closer than Kissimmee Prairie Preserve and Chiefland. So it's a great place to go out if you need to get to some dark areas. We just hosted a Perseid meteor shower viewing there. So again, great location for observing the sky. The next image is actually an image taken by Bill Castro, and I believe Bill is on here. So I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk, Bill. If you want to quickly unmute yourself, and actually the next several images are going to be yours. So I'll let you go ahead and talk about that.
Okay, this is mainly for some of the newer members and to show you what you can do with a cell phone. The image on the left is straight out of the cell phone camera, unenhanced. And the cell phone is an iPhone 12 Pro, and I handheld it, and it does like a 1.5 second integration. But this is my backyard in Oviedo, and it's kind of neat because you can see the Perseid is streaking. You can see that by the tree, and it's heading, behind the house there on the lower part. And then you see the constellation Orion. You see the main stars there. You can go up, you can see the V shaped of the Hades, and above that is M45, the Seven Sisters of the Pleiades. But I was really happy when that came out. And I put that on the group's I/O page. And then Steve, just to show you what you can do when you enhance it with whatever software. And I didn't get the details of how Steve enhanced it, but he posted that on the I/O page, and that looks pretty good. So just tweaking a little bit, you get a really nice photo. But you start out with a nice picture too. So it's a pretty easy thing to do.
All right, and the next photo that we have here is your Lunar V and Lunar X image that you've taken.
Yeah, that's kind of one of my favorite features on the moon. And you see the sunrise is going over these craters at the peaks of the craters, the higher parts, and they form the shape of the letter V and X. In the center image, you can I highlight where those spots are. But this was done over a 44-minute sequence, and you can actually see how the sun changes the landscape over a short period of time. I think Richard Wright was pointing that out a while ago, so I was able to do this. And you're going, if you look on the right, where I've got it circled in red, that's where it stands out the most. You can see the most change there. You compare that to the center image. And then the image more on the left, you see the peaks start coming out more and more along the right side of the terminator as the sun rises over that. So that was kind of neat. And then again, for the newer members, I handheld cell phone at the eyepiece. Even my old cell phone would take a good picture like this. These images are unenhanced. You can sharpen them up later. This is what you start out with. You start out with a pretty decent picture.
All right, fantastic. They look great. And again, lunar, for those that are beginning in the astrophotography world, lunar photography is one of the best places to start out. You don't need fancy equipment to do that. You can, as you said, you have here an iPhone. You can buy an iPhone holder for under $50 now, and you can really start taking some incredible photographs of our nearest celestial neighbors. So great work, Bill. And then this is okay. I think those are the two images. Thank you. And then Bill, you have your sketch later on. I'll go ahead and I'll get you to talk again after that. The next image actually is from Bill Costring. It's not really an image, it's an animation of many images over the course of several hours. This is the rotation of Jupiter. And Bill has kind of become our aficionado, or our absolute amazing, if you will, expert on planetary imaging. And he takes absolutely incredible stuff. And this is, again, series of images that he took and created a image sequence showing the rotation of Jupiter. Nice thing about Jupiter, for those that are new, Jupiter rotates very quickly in under 10 hours. So if you're doing a even hour-long sequence of images, you can actually get a pretty decent amount of rotation of the planet Jupiter. So again, great work with that, Bill. And Bill did mention that he took this with his 12-inch Dobsonian. Unfortunately, I don't have much information as far as the series of images and things like that, but either way, this is a fantastic shot of Jupiter. This image here, actually, it's a composition of two images. These are my photos. I decided to have fun. We had that really rare clear night a few weeks ago, and it happened to be right on the night of the Jupiter opposition. So I did a little live stream for our for the community, and took a look at both Jupiter and Saturn that evening. So these are some of the images that I took during that. This was with a 174 ASI camera using a Celestron 11-inch Schmidt, and this was a series of several minutes worth of exposure, and using a process called Lucky Imaging. And basically, I don't want to go into a total lot of detail on that, but essentially Lucky Imaging basically takes a series of frames from a video and essentially picks the best out of all of them. So so you get really nice clean data, and stacking those images will create a really nice image like you see here with both Jupiter and Saturn. And on that night, you actually you can see my mouse here. This is actually the moon of Io crossing over the planet Jupiter. You can actually see Io there, and then the shadow of Io during that transit. So I thought that was a really cool event. All right, the next image is actually a composite of several images as well from Richard Wright. So Richard, tell us about your image.
Thanks. Yeah, the same night and almost the same neighborhood as Derek. I think I was a few hours after him. Actually, the same camera. I also had a NASI 174. And so I set up in the backyard and I shot all three of these targets. I did several images of the moon, and then I got Saturn as it passed between some trees, and then I got Jupiter as it passed between some trees, and I processed them all. And I realized this would make a really good composite because these are all the same image scale. So if you were looking past the moon at this scale, this is how large Jupiter and Saturn would appear. You can see Saturn is a little smaller than Jupiter. It's also further away from Jupiter. So I cropped these, which just means I cut out the image, but the pixel scale and everything is identical. So this is a true comparison of the sizes, the apparent sizes, as you see these objects from Earth. On a little more modest aperture than Derek. This is a 6-inch refractor. My new 6-inch refractor, for those who know the story. I had a 4x power mate in it. And then the ASI 174 has pretty large pixels, so not super great pixel scale. But you know, for a 6-inch refractor, I think it did okay. You know, for planets and the moon. You know, you don't necessarily have to have a giant telescope to start to get these targets. I also got Io. If Derek, you might, since you've got the pointer that everybody can see, I don't know if you can. Yeah, there's the shadow of Io. Io is right there next to it. It's a little white dot that you cannot see without, you know, shrinking it, zooming in the picture a great deal. But I like this picture because it has two moons, our moon and Io, and two planets, which is Jupiter and Saturn. And that's it. Next.
All right, fantastic. The ultimate 222 special there. So yeah. Fantastic. All right, this goes back to Bill Castro. Of course, Bill has been awarded the Sketcher Award from the Astronomical League, and very rightfully so. And here is one of his sketches that he submitted for this month's observing. So what do we got here, Bill?
Well, this is my favorite part of the Milky Way, or the night sky, to look at. It's just about, we're a little bit above, we're Sagittarius, and the start of Nebula Row, where you can go up from there. And, you know, binoculars for the newer members, you know, binoculars or a wide field telescope like a refractor with wide field eyepieces will do a great job. So this is the my refractor with a 31 millimeter Nagler. You can read the details on the observing log there, but that gives me about a 2.8, almost a 3-degree field of view. And I also used the ultra high contrast nebular filter. That one on a 5-inch refractor works fairly well. And this is in light polluted Oviedo, you know, battling the Orion or the Orlando Nebula, you know, with all the light pollution out west. This is looking pretty much south. You see north is up. And this sketch, you know, a lot of the things I've done with my workload that I had in the past, you know, working 50, 60 hours a week, you don't have a lot of time. And so this thing took, you know, 15 minutes at the eyepiece to draw. And then you grab the pencil sketch, and you grab that area where you do the sketch, you take a picture of it with your cell phone again, and you put it into Microsoft Paint, you know, make a negative out of it, and then tweak it a little bit for contrast and sharpness. And, you know, so 15 minutes at the eyepiece, 15 minutes at the computer, and you're done. And it's great. It comes out really quick, and you're looking at going from top to bottom. You have the open cluster M21, and then you have the Trifid Nebula below that, and then in the lower right is M8, the Lagoon Nebula, and they still show up pretty good. It's not it's not the greatest thing, but light polluted skies, but you can still get out in your backyard and see it. With my working as an engineer, electrical engineer for 40 plus years, recently retired, but I've been looking at a screen, either a oscilloscope or a computer screen or something, designing imaging equipment for military applications and whatnot. So the last thing I want to do now that I'm retired is sit in front of a computer for hours on end. So because of that, I do sketching. And for the newer members, that's probably the easiest thing to do to get into and learn.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll definitely need to put together, once the observing season improves for us here in Florida, a sketching workshop would be fantastic. So thank you so much, Bill, for your dedication and time and putting these together. All right, this image belongs to a new member of our organization, Sean Quinn. Sean, I'm going to let you talk if you want to talk a little bit about your image here and all that. So go ahead.
Well, greetings, CFAS. It's great to be a new member. And this image, it's actually a mosaic. It was acquired from the Biolab boat ramp area last week, and consists of about 20 frames of the Eastern Veal Nebula at about, let's see, what was it, 2-minute exposures, and then about 11 frames of the Western Veal Nebula at 2-minute exposures before the clouds came in. So as everyone knows, it's been a long summer without a lot of clear skies, and it was great to get the astrophysics stowaway out in the Mach 2 mount and put it to work, and this is the result. So had a lot of fun. I wish I had more clear skies, more time, but there you go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean. And I got the chance to meet Sean at the Bull Creek observing. We actually stayed out together and did some astrophotography. So I'm glad to see you joined CFAS, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at future events and observing, and hopefully we'll be able to take that telescope out more and do some great images with it. All right, next image belongs to veteran Frank Kane, extraordinaire of science. Frank.
Wow, what an introduction. Yeah, this is this is my favorite thing in the night sky, the Bubble Nebula. This is in the constellation Cassiopeia, and it's a really big Wolf-Rayet star that kind of blew off some of its mass, and its stellar wind is what's making that really cool blue bubble of stuff in the middle here. And that same star is also ionizing the gas around it to make those beautiful reddish clouds surrounding it. So really beautiful object, and a really interesting one scientifically as well. This was taken from my backyard in Merritt Island using a Skywatcher 190MN Maksutov Newtonian telescope on a Paramount Mighty mount, and using my dinosaur of a camera, an Attic 383L Plus CCD camera.
Well, I mean, still a fantastic astro camera. And then Frank, this is also yours as well.
Yep, this is the Cygnus Wall, using the same setup, same place. This is part of the North America Nebula, and it's one of the most picturesque parts of it, I think. All that blue stuff, this is all false color, of course. This is narrowband imaging, so the blue corresponds to ionized oxygen, and the muddy brownish stuff is ionized hydrogen and sulfur gases there that are lit up by the stars that are illuminating this cloud of gas. So if you look at the North American Nebula, this is basically Central America, if you think of it that way, but it's just really pretty. So again, same setup from Merritt Island.
Fantastic, yes. Yeah, narrowband is definitely one of those series of astrophotography techniques that can really save you when it comes to light pollution, and definitely like to get more people involved in that. Our final image belongs to the other astrophotographer extraordinaire of science, junior, we'll call that, is Fritz Laun. So Fritz, if you want to go ahead and chat real quick about this great photo here.
All right. Yeah. Thank you also for the great intro. So this is M51, the Whirlpool Galaxy, imaged from my backyard in Lake Nona using my kind of new at this point, I guess about 6 months older. So GSO RC10 at f8 truss telescope. Finally, kind of getting that dialed in. I definitely love imaging galaxies, but they're also one of the hardest from, the semi-light polluted. I'm about Bortle 5 skies out here. So this is actually 20 hours of data. And like Frank, I have the same camera, the 383L, which I've now had for 8 years, and it's probably time for an upgrade. A little tired of the very noisy Kodak 8300 chip. So I think probably going to try to move to the IMX 455 CMOS sensor soon, which will be a big upgrade and hopefully help with some of the noise I suffer here and make it easier to get light pollution out of here. But this image is also enhanced with a little bit of hydrogen alpha data just to kind of make the reds and pinks pop, 6 nanometer. And yeah, so we'll slow to process all this data from months ago, but kind of making it up as I go here. It's what the rainy season's for.
Absolutely, yes. All right, fantastic. Well, that concludes our astrophotography showcase. And what I'm going to do now is I believe I only just shared this window here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. I'm going to go ahead and share another screen. One of the things I want to talk about is just recently I was featured on the Astro-Imaging channel on YouTube. I know Richard Wright has also been featured on that as well. The people that actually host this contacted me and wanted me to be featured on this thing. And I did want an episode on using astrophotography for education and how I use it to help teach my students in the community about astronomy and doing your own images as opposed to just relying on Hubble Space Telescope pictures and things like that. Well, they asked me at the very end, said, hey, we'd love to see if any of your other members of the Central Florida Astronomical Society would be interested in giving a talk. And some of you may be excited about sharing your passion with astrophotography. Essentially, the Astro-Imaging channel focuses on basically anything having to do with astrophotography. That could be technical stuff like how to process your photos or how to use PixInsight or how to cool your camera or anything related with hardware or software in regards to astrophotography. You can also talk about things like I did, which was concepts in astrophotography. If you want to talk about, how your astrophotography has helped influence, anybody, or pretty much any topic related to astrophotography is pretty much good to go. They do ask you to talk for about 45 minutes, and then it will also include Q&A. And these will be featured on their YouTube page, the Astro-Imaging channel. But this right here is their website, the astroimagingchannel.org. So the astroimagingchannel.org. And if you're interested in actually presenting something, all you have to do is click on the contact, and you basically just fill out your name, your email, and say, I'm interested in presenting a talk on such and such and such. And then go ahead and hit the submit button. And then within a couple of days or so, you'll get an email back saying, yeah, we love to hear you give a talk. And here are the dates available. They pretty much do it almost every week. Usually it is on Sunday nights. They do it through Google Meets. So if you're not used to that platform, they do offer a training time where they can meet up with you prior to the talk that you'll give. So they can take you on a tutorial on how to operate Google Meets. It's a little bit different than Zoom. It's pretty much a lot the same thing, but there are some few differences. But again, if you go to their calendar, you can look at, all the different kind of talks they do. So for example, they have talks about imaging through a light dome at difficult conditions, resources for blind, disabled, quantifying the effects of dark skies, nightscapes in Western Australia. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of different kinds of subjects they talk about. So if you're interested in if you want to share your passion about astrophotography, you can do that by joining the Astro-Imaging channel. And if you have any other questions, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Otherwise, hopefully I'll see you on there on the Astro-Imaging channel. Back to you, Richard.
Thanks. And yeah, that's a great resource. Even if you're not, even if you don't want to sign up as be a speaker, all of the past episodes are recorded, and you can go back and see that the guy who wrote Sharp Cap, for example, gives a talk about Sharp Cap. And yeah, I've been on a few times talking about software BISC stuff. So a lot of the vendors have done shows too, talking about their products, and you get to see the people behind what's going on, and also just a huge wealth of talented astrophotographers talking about what they do and how they do it. And I know the guys that run that, and they're all really great. They're all really great people. So wholeheartedly endorse them. And yes, we did do a little switcheroo. Derek was originally slated to do this last, but he and I sort of coordinated behind the scenes and like, while we're on the topic of astrophotography, why don't you go ahead and talk about that? So I am actually up next, and we're going to spend a minute on the moon. The moon is one of my favorite. Did I share the right screen? I need to do that again. It's so hard to talk and click at the same time. I did that right. I know what I'm doing. All right, this month's minute on the moon is Langrenus and friends. I don't know if it's Langrenus or Landrinus, but I keep saying Langrenus, so that's what I'm going to call it. From early in the moon's crescent phases until just past full moon, Myrmeconditis. I was never very good at the Harry Potter names, so I'm just going to say the Sea of Fertility. Puts on a great show for any size telescope or even binoculars. This lunar mare is about 520 miles across and features a couple of noteworthy citizens. The most prominent crater in the area is Langrenus, an 82-mile wide crater with a central peak and steeply terraced walls. With the sun nearly overhead, the peak looks like a little, kind of like a little white hole in the middle. It's amazing what this looks like with the sun shining at an angle. Those terraced edges really stand out, and that little white blob that looks like a flat spot in the middle looks like a giant peak sticking up, and it even casts a shadow on the floor as the sun passes overhead. Also in the area, two little craters up near the upper left, Messier and Messier A. I do know how to say that because I've heard it said by people who know better than me enough times. Messier A has a little ray system behind it. Let me get my mouse over here. These two rays are actually much brighter visually than they show up in this photograph. And every time I look at the moon, when it's close to full, I see these bright rays sticking off like a comet, which is really quite appropriate since Messier was a famous comet hunter. I've heard lots of explanations for these two craters. They look like they were formed by the same thing that bounced. I don't particularly like that theory because if something landed there and bounced and made a hole that big, it would still be lying around, and there's no big rock nearby. And I don't see something making that first crater with a big explosive force, and then whatever it was that blew up, bounced out and landed and blew up again. I think it's more the objects, one object broke apart, and of course we're at a very steep angle as they came in and created these craters. Also nearby, we have two other Mars Spumans and Mars Smithy. Mary Smithy over here, it looks like you can actually see the dent here in the side of the moon. Very favorable libration. This is just last month, about October 17th or so, when this is the same night as the Jupiter opposition. So whenever that was the night that I took this. Mare Smithy just means Smith's crater, or Smith's Mary. So very, very imaginative there. So for the parting shot, give you the moon with no labels. Just take a look at this edge. You can see these dips and valleys. These are not processing artifacts. This is real lunar terrain that you're seeing here. And I really love how the Mare Smithy looks like a bowl, and you can actually sort of see the depression there in the dark the darker area. This is not a crater. If you look at the LRO images straight on, you wouldn't even think that it was depressed, but looking at it from the side, you can kind of see how that terrain turns in. So get out there and spend your own minute on the moon, or maybe even two. It's available all year long from your own backyard, even with the most modest telescope or set of binoculars. And that's all I have. Up next is John Pinto, who's going to do some math, talk about the equinox. John, are you ready? I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yes, I am.
And if I caught you unawares, we'll figure out something. All right, take it away.
All right. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right, great. All right, so we are going to talk about the autumn equinox, which has some interesting features about it, which we'll talk about in a minute. But some of you may want to know how you could figure out when it is on your own without waiting for a calendar to be printed or look it up online. Technically, it's really the September equinox because, as you know, in the southern hemisphere, this would be the spring equinox. So I don't want to be too biased as to our hemisphere here. So let's get going. A couple of things I want to bring up from previous talks that I've done that are coming up this month. I thought I'd just mention it before we get going. So I believe back in January, I had done a talk on calculating when algol has a minima. So you can go out and watch that star get dimmer and then brighten up again. So this is the beginning of what I'm going to call algol season, which runs for quite a number of months around now. This Sunday on the 12th, the minima is going to be around midnight on that Sunday night. And on the following Wednesday, the 15th, the minima is going to be around 9 p.m. So if you are interested in variable stars or want to get interested in variable stars, that's a great way to get used to viewing it. The other thing that I've been commenting on our social media pages is Mira or Myra, whatever your favorite pronunciation is a variable star that only brightens up about once a year. I think it's actually like every 11 months. And it is now up in the late evening, early morning sky. It peaked probably a few weeks ago, middle of August, early August, but it's still visible now. So if you want to take a look, locate it in the sky. It's about magnitude 3 right now. It is in the process of dimming. So it might be interesting to see how long you can observe it with your naked eye before it disappears and becomes a telescopic object at that point. Like I said, right now is a good time to observe it, probably because of our weather. I've been finding the morning, a few hours before dawn, is a good time to see it up in southern, southeastern sky. Yeah. Let's get on to the equinox. So again, as always, I do this fairly manually, paper and pencil, a calculator. Not going to make you do the the math by hand, but you can if you want to. So let's talk about things you're going to need to know ahead of time. Again, this is all about doing some math. If this isn't your thing, go have a cup of coffee and come back in a couple minutes. We're going to talk about the constellation Virgo. What does that mean for the equinox? We're going to be mentioning Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC. Again, if you don't know what that is, look it up. We're going to mention the celestial equator and the ecliptic. It comes in handy when describing exactly what the equinox is. And as always, in most of these talks, whenever we have to do an astronomical calculation, we will be dealing with Julian day numbers, because almost every formula for calculating anything starts off with knowing your Julian day numbers. So And of course, I'm going to do this from an observer in Florida. So that takes out a lot of extra steps that you don't need if all you need to do is calculate this for yourself while you're living here in Florida. So exactly what is the autumn equinox? So most people, if you just ask them, oh yeah, it's when the sun comes up at 6 o'clock and sets at 6 o'clock. That's not quite true. Another definition you might hear is, well, it's the day that has the equal daylight hours and nighttime hours. That's actually pretty close to accurate, but it's hard to calculate that. So it's not something that we're going to try to figure out. We're going to use what I'm going to call the astronomical definition, which is the date and time when the sun reaches 180 degrees of ecliptic longitude. I'll explain what that is in a second. And that place in the sky is currently in the constellation of Virgo. So when the sun finally gets to that point in Virgo, that's when the autumn equinox occurs. It's also the place where the sun crosses the celestial equator as it's going from the north to the south of it. So I'm going to have a little illustration in a moment. So that is the definition we'll use. We, as always, will be using a very simple approximation, good enough from the year 2000 until about the year 2080. So hopefully that covers most of our lifetimes. And our accuracy is pretty good. It's going to be plus or minus 20 minutes. So you won't be far off from whatever data you find printed on your astronomical calendar. There is one curious little fact, again, ties into a talk that I did earlier in the summer about star time or local sidereal time. It's just around this time of the autumn equinox that your star time and your clock time actually match. So if you remember that talk, star time runs a little bit faster than your clock. So just like a broken clock is right twice a day, sidereal time and your clock time will match twice a year. Around the autumn equinox, it'll be exactly the same. And around the spring equinox, the vernal equinox, it'll be 12 hours off. So if you just have a 12-hour clock, it'll look like it's the same time. This year, again, this convergence of clock and star time is around September 20th. But that's not the autumn equinox date. We're going to get to that. This is a little bit of an illustration of how this is defined. So let me see if I can get my little pointer showing up here. There we go. Okay, so this is the path of the sun in our sky as it moves along through the year. This is the spring equinox. And then the sun gets higher and higher in the northern sky until we get to our summer solstice in June, when it is the highest in the sky, and then it starts coming down. Okay, down, 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 down. Finally, it crosses what we call the celestial equator, which is just the projection of our Earth's equator out into the sky. And as it reaches that point right there, this is 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees. So when it reaches this point, that's when the autumn equinox occurs. Another curious thing about the equinoxes, this one, is that's the day the sun will rise and set exactly due east and due west. So kind of cool to orient yourself to your cardinal points. Okay. Enough introduction. So how are we going to do all this? Just like pretty much all of the equinox and solstice calculations, they pretty much run the same. The first thing we're going to do is calculate the Julian day of the autumn equinox. We are then going to convert that to UTC, or Coordinated Universal Time. And then finally convert that to our local Florida clock time that you would see on your wall. All right, calculating the JD. This actually is probably the simplest part of the entire calculation. So here we go. That's the formula. You take 2,451,810.21715, and you add that to 365,242.0177, and you multiply it by this factor called MF. MF stands for Millennium Factor. How do we calculate that? That is super simple. You take your year, 2021 in our example, you drop the 20, and you write it as 0.021 in our example. Pretty straightforward. So here's our MF for this year. Plug that into the formula. This first multiplication comes out to 7,670.082737 days. We add that to this number, and you get 2,459,480.29952. That is when the autumn equinox occurs in 2021. I'm assuming most of you do not have a Julian day calendar and clock, so obviously we can't just stop there. However, this number 9480 is somewhat significant because that is something you can use to look up on a Julian day calendar. What does that look like? Well, the AAVSO publishes a Julian day calendar every year. You can get the free PDF from their website, print one out, put it on your wall. And that number 9480 turns out to be September 22nd. Now, you have to know something a little about Julian day numbers. They run from noon to noon. So because our Julian day number ends in 9480, it tells us that the autumn equinox is going to occur sometime between noon on the 22nd and noon on the 23rd. So that's what we have to figure out now. I convert that to UTC. Now, you can do this in a number of ways. Of course, as I just said, you can use a Julian day calendar. You can use a Julian day to UTC online calculator. That same AAVSO website has a simple calculator. You can take that number, stick it in there, click the button, and it'll tell you exactly when it will be. Or you can manually calculate it as we're going to do. Just as a reminder, this is what a Julian day calendar calculator looks like. You would stick that Julian day number in here, click convert, and boom, you get a page showing you when it would be. But we're not going to take the shortcut. Most Julian day calculations work a lot better if you know at least the starting date for the year. So that's what we're going to do first. What was the Julian day at the beginning of the year? Again, fairly simple formula. You take this 1,721,409.5, and you add that to the truncation, which means just drop off all the decimal places, of 365.25. That should look really familiar, times the year you're in minus 1. Right, so let's go ahead and do it. So for the year 2021, you plug in the numbers and it looks like this. Right? We subtracted 1 from 2021, we got 2020. Multiply 365.25 by it, and you get 737,805. Happens not to have any decimal places, so the truncation doesn't do much for us here, but many years there will be some decimal places that you're going to want to truncate off. You add the two numbers together and you come up with the starting Julian day number for the year 2021. Very useful number. You only need to calculate it once a year. You write it in your notebook and you're going to use it throughout the year for many, many calculations. The next thing we want to do is calculate the Julian day number for September. Again, we know this happens in September. So again, this saves us a lot of time to calculate this right away. So here we go. Again, really simple. This is just a little table you have to look up. You take that Julian day number for the year we just calculated, and you add to it the days into the year for the beginning of September. And I just happen to know what those are. It's either 243 if it's a non-leap year or a normal year, and it's 244 days for leap year. At the end of this slide, I have a table that shows you all of these numbers. So for 2021, which is not a leap year, so our days into the year is 243. We add that to the Julian day number for the year we just calculated, and we get the beginning of September was 2,459,457.5 days. Now we're ready to calculate the UTC. So we know it's in September, so that part's pretty straightforward. We just need to calculate what day and what time in September. Now, we already got cheated because we looked at the calendar and it told us it was on the 22nd, but this calculation should confirm that. So what you do is you take that JD we calculated a few slides back for the autumn equinox, and we're going to subtract it from the beginning of September. So that was the number we calculated a few slides back for the autumn equinox. This was the beginning of September. And there we go. The UTC is definitely the 22nd, but it is 0.79952 hours or parts of a day into the 22nd. So we're going to figure out what that is. And that's the part where we have to convert it to Florida local time. And that's also fairly simple. You just take the UTC and you subtract your time zone factor. We are in the Eastern time zone, so we just have to figure out, are we in daylight savings time or not? If you are not in daylight savings time, you're in standard time, the time zone factor is 5/24. Or if daylight savings time is in effect, it is 4/24. That's what, in decimal, those things work out to be. In 2021, we know that daylight saving time is in effect in September. So we're going to use the 4/24 number. Subtract that from our UTC we calculated. And that is when the autumn equinox will occur in Florida time on our clocks. But we don't have clocks that work on fractions of a day. So now we have to figure out what part of a 24-hour clock that turns out to be. We know it's September 22nd, so that part's easy. So the first thing you do is you take that number and you just drop all the decimal places. And that's just to remind you that's the day of the month it's going to be. So it's on the 22nd. We remove the 22 from our number to get just the decimal portion. And that's really going to help us figure out what hour and minute on the 22nd it's going to be. So you take this number and you multiply it by 24 hours. And it tells us that it's going to be in the 15th hour of the day in some fraction of that hour. So we truncate that, just remind ourselves that it's 15th hour. We subtract the 15 from our number and we get another fraction of the hour. We multiply that by 60 minutes, which comes out to 11.304. And since this is not a high precision calculation, there's no reason to go any further. So we're just going to round that to 11 minutes. So at the end of the day, we calculated that our autumn equinox is going to occur sometime around September 22nd at 15:11, which in a 12-hour clock, that's 3:11 p.m. in the afternoon. Now, how good is this approximation that we did? Not too bad. A high accuracy calculation tells us that it's on September 22nd at 3:21 p.m. So we're only off by 10 minutes. And since the formula I started with, I told you it's plus or minus 20 minutes, we're within that error range. If you want to learn more how to do this, this is a great book to start with. There's all kinds of programs and errata that this author has published. This is probably the easiest and simplest introduction to doing any kind of celestial calculation I've run across. And the fact that he provides programs, you can run everything on your computer and just check your manual calculations. I think it's great. If you want to get a little bit more sophisticated, this is probably the next book you'd want to look at in order of difficulty. More difficult if you are super interested in this. And then finally, if you want to become a professional, that's the book you need. As I said, I was going to give you all the other formulas you would need in case you want to do any of these on your own. So the first thing is, this is the basic formula for all of those events you'd want to calculate. These are all those days into the year numbers you'll need to calculate UTC time. And that's it. We are done. If you have questions, I'm glad to answer.
Thanks a lot, John.
You're welcome.
Cool stuff. This is, I was doing this stuff in high school. I remember getting some of these books and TI 99 4A home computer. Brings back memories. Sharife, you're up with SpaceFest. If you're ready to roll.
I am ready. Let me bring up my screen.
Take it away then.
And share sound. All right, here we go. So I'm going to be talking about SpaceFest. And let me make that bigger. All right, so I went to SpaceFest a couple months ago, and SpaceFest, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. And the reason why I'm telling you is because it's an event that is open to the public. It's in Tucson, Arizona. It happens at the end of July, August of every year. And yeah, so this is the cover art for SpaceFest, and the artist was Amber Allen, who created the cover art and the main art piece for this convention this year. And then on the bottom is a picture that I took in Tucson. So what is, oops, SpaceFest? So SpaceFest is, it's been known, kind of nicknamed as Comic-Con for space enthusiasts. And let me check the chat real quick. All right. So Comic-Con for space enthusiasts, self-proclaimed, and what it is basically a gathering of all different people from the space community, astronomy community. There are about 20 plus astronauts that show up, some artists, authors, all different kinds from all different industries of space gather together in Tucson, Arizona, in the JW Marriott and Star Pass. And if you haven't been out there, it is incredible. So this is a couple pictures from the hotel and a piece that I did just after. That was just the fun piece that I did. And yeah, so what it is that the convention, SpaceFest, is held in the convention center and in the hotel. Everybody stays in the hotel, and it's just kind of a 4-day convention. So there's a lot of hiking and events kind of in the Tucson area if you want to do on your own. And then during the day, there are different seminars with different talks that go on. So the host for the event is Nova Space, and it's an organization that started in 1978 by an artist, Kim Poor. And his art, one of his pieces is in the top right with the logo for Nova Space. And so what he would do is that, and I'm definitely paraphrasing this, but he would create art workshops and create pieces of space art. And then that led to workshops that he would lead. Started partnering with the International Association of Astronomical Artists, and the art workshop started selling out. It took off. Astronauts began selling their memorabilia and also creating art and partnering with Nova Space and the IAA. So out of all the different combinations and all the different walks of life that were partnering together, they created SpaceFest in 2007. It didn't happen last year because of the pandemic, but it did happen this past year. And then this was my second one. I went in 2019. So it's an incredible thing. There I am in the lobby, and yeah, the hotel, and then some other pictures that are there. So the reason why I'm presenting this is also, if there's any of the seminars that you guys want me to do like another mini program on, feel free to let me know in the chat, or you can email me. One of the talks that I went to that was very cool was about moon trees and the Moon Tree Foundation. So Rosemary Russo, who was the daughter of Stuart Russo, who was an Apollo 14 astronaut. She talked all about the books that she had and also the Moon Tree Foundation. And I'm happy to talk more about that in more detail in another meeting or something. And she had a moon tree there. Very cool program, very cool foundation. Also talked about attended a seminar on the Dragonfly mission that's going to be ideally launching in 2027 to go to Titan and pick up more or less where Cassini left off, and using similar technology to Ingenuity and Perseverance, but also kind of taking it a step further and filling in the blanks for that. Happy to talk about some more of the research and the science and the mission for Dragonfly. And also attended a seminar on lunar and Martian caves, which was very cool. I have not read the book that I have in the middle there, but love to get to it actually. And I can give you guys a synopsis of it if you'd like. And then that was very neat, and just kind of talking about the volcanic caves and the different caves that are potentially found on Mars, and then also the moon, and the potential for exploring and whatever foundations they might have for life or for providing life, and then also for exploration. So let me know if you'd want me to talk any more about any of these. And I am happy to put something together, just a mini program. So one of the panels, it's another thing that's really neat about SpaceFest, is that they have different panels. And one of the panels that they had was the STS panel. And I'm not going to read all of the expeditions and everything that these astronauts were part of, but these are the astronauts that were there. What's awesome about SpaceFest is that you can be at the Starbucks in the hotel and just kind of be standing right behind Charlie Duke, and or not even realize that you're behind an Apollo astronaut. And yeah, you just kind of bump into them and you can talk to them. They also have their books and their art, if they're artists, for sale, and then you can interact with them. But yeah, it's neat because the panels, they talk a little bit about kind of like candid behind the scenes of what happens on the mission, stuff that you don't typically see if you were to go to Kennedy Space Center or something like that. It's a supplement to that. So that's Anubis, my dog, on a little popsicle stick, and he makes appearances. And anyway, they had the Apollo panel that was next. These are the astronauts, and also the flight director, Jerry Griffin, and Dee O'Hara, which she was an aerospace nurse. Hilarious stories of all the behind the scenes, the astronauts and everything that again, you don't really see on the documentaries and whatnot. And so they did a panel, and then also the mission control panel, which was the last one. It's kind of like them in mission control during the Apollo missions. And they also talked about how they were consultants for the Apollo 13 movie. And if you didn't know, fun fact, the real Jim Lovell made a cameo, and he was talking to Tom Hanks in the movie. And so they talked kind of how with Ron Howard, they were consultants with the movie crew. So if you want more information about SpaceFest, you're welcome to email me if you want me to give you any more information about that. I can send you the info for SpaceFest. Their website's there. Also, the International Association of Astronomical Artists, that's their website, and also Nova Space. So you can picture with Clay Anderson, and yeah. So that is that. I do have a short video. It's just 2-minute video that I can share. Let me stop here and let's see. All right. So I see that you guys want Dragonfly. I guess shout out to noobs. So I can put something together for that. And let me show you a video. This is just a promo video that's from the 2019 footage, and then it was a promo for 2021. So let me go ahead and play that.
I'm Nicole Stott. I'm a retired NASA astronaut. I had the opportunity to fly on 2 missions, and I'm now an artist.
Gennady Padalka, Russian cosmonaut. I flew in space 5 times. I worked with NASA for 20 years. And right now I'm the world record holder. I spent the most time spent in space, 79 days in space.
I'm Ray Seddon. I was in the first group of space shuttle astronauts, the first group that accepted women. So I was very lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
I'm Dee O'Hara, and I've had the great fortune of being assigned to care for all the astronauts.
Yeah, I'm Jerry Griffin. I was a flight director for all of the manned missions of the Apollo series from Apollo 7 through 17.
I'm astronaut Charlie Duke. Was in the 5th group of astronauts, selected in 1966.
My name is Al Worden, I flew to the moon back in 1971 as the command module pilot on Apollo 15.
Right. So I will stop sharing. Yeah, so you might have seen a few different familiar faces that were in the video that are no longer with us. So Michael Collins and Al Warden, who have since passed away, but it is definitely an incredible event, and I would definitely suggest anyone going if you can and you want to, for all different walks of space. So there you go. That's it. And that is the end of my presentation.
That looks like a fantastic trip.
It's a lot of fun.
It is. And Apollo 13 is my favorite movie. And every time we watch it, I go, that's Jim Lovell. He was doing a cameo. My wife is so sick of it. She won't even watch the movie with me anymore. But yeah, great. Thank you, Sharife, very much. Eric, you are going to close us out with several minutes on the sun. What are you going to talk about this month?
We're going to talk about
the sun.
The sun, sunsets, and twilight, and that. So we've got quite a few new members.
Right?
So I just wanted to highlight that for a little bit. So you ready to share?
Go for it.
Okay, let's do this. Okay, how's that presenting?
Eric Hoin hit that. I see a few minutes with the sun. It's a little cropped on the left.
I don't know why. Let me try that again.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, let's try this first. Let's try that. Share. You can see that, right?
Yes, I see everything there.
Come on, go into presentation mode. How's that?
There we go, perfect.
All right, so I'm Eric Hoin with my new CFAS t-shirt on. You can see that. Very nice. We have a few minutes with the sun. Otherwise, it's an observing night. And are we there yet? You know, when you're a youngster, you take a trip. And one of the questions from the kids in the back seat was always, are we there yet? Well, when you're out and you're taking your telescope, you're headed towards your destination, your question isn't sometimes, are we there yet? But when is it going to get dark? All right, you got your scope set up. Some of you may be familiar with this wonderful photo that Richard took. And that, so you've got dusk approaching and you have what's called twilight. But while you're waiting, in case you didn't know, or it's a refresher, while you're waiting for dusk, it can sometimes be as laborious and time consuming and irritable as waiting for the I-4 project to finish. So, but you finally get to sunset, otherwise known as sundown. Which is the daily disappearance of the sun due to the rotation of the Earth. We all know the Earth rotates to the east, sun sets in the west. And so sunset is defined in astronomy as the moment when the upper limb of the sun, right here, disappears below the horizon. Okay, so as soon as the upper limb of the sun disappears below the horizon, sunset, we have sunset. But it's different than twilight, which is actually 3 stages while you're waiting for it to get dark. All right. So here we have our day, we have our daylight, and we have our horizon, and we've got this itty bitty sun. So sun is not drawn to scale, just so you know. But you've got the upper limb of the sun that just dipped and hit the horizon. So we're starting what's called civil twilight. And as the Earth continues to rotate, that covers about 6 degrees. All right, and after civil twilight, then you have civil dusk. All righty, and then you have nautical twilight, and I'll explain these here in a moment, and nautical dusk, and then astronomical twilight, and then astronomical dusk. Yay, this will be what we've been waiting for. And then we have night. Okay, so excuse me. So we have, the sun hits the horizon and goes below the horizon. Already, during your normal conditions of atmospheric refraction, the upper limb appears to be touching the horizon. So you could technically say that sunset can vary from individual to individual depending on they're standing on the top of their house or down on the street. So civil twilight, though, that's 6 degrees of civil twilight. It's the time when street lights come on, automobiles begin using their headlights, and it's to put it generally, it's a time we start to use and need some artificial light. I used to play baseball during the summer when I was a kid until the street lights came on. And then after that, we have nautical twilight, which was, as its term so designates, what sailors would use in navigation, as we see here. Best time for a sailor to use a sextant back when was the horizon was still visible. Many of the brightest stars, we're talking Sirius, Vega, as an example, a couple examples. Important navigational stars would not be visible, but the brightest ones would be. And then later, as the horizon becomes too difficult to see through the sextant, then we have astronomical twilight, when the sun dips to the center of the sun dips to 18 degrees below the horizon. Now, Earth rotates and it's off a little bit. I know, John, it's off a little bit. I know you're going to say roughly 15 degrees an hour, quarter of a degree a minute, a degree and a quarter every 5 minutes. And so then it takes 15 degrees in an hour for the sun to rotate. But depending on your location on Earth and the season, your different times, instead of taking a little over an hour, because 18 degrees covers a little over an hour of the Earth's rotation, sometimes after you have civil twilight, it takes about 40 minutes. All right, depends on the position of the sun in the sky, and as I said, the season, your location on Earth. So, and after you get into astronomical twilight, the sky's dark enough for astronomers to make productive use, and we can begin using our telescopes, and you get just the faintest glow of the sun's position. And if you're in the right spot, then over to the east, you've got wonderful darkness, little sky glow yet over to tiny bit of sky glow over to the west. And so we've got another visual here, as you can see. So with the last, with the examples I gave you, we're heading into dusk, which is the complete shadow of the Earth here. And as you may guess, and if you're saying out loud, okay, this looks like dawn coming, you are absolutely correct, because it works in reverse then, where you have astronomical twilight, and then nautical twilight, and then civil twilight, and then you have the sun coming up above the horizon. So eventually, yes, we'll get there. And you can do, when you have some patience, you wait, make sure all your telescopes, all your accessories are available for your setup and that. And You can take wonderful images. It's like Derek, like Richard here, Len, Frank King, and of course, here's the Andromeda Galaxy, M31 with M33 down there. So until our next observing session, have a great sol.
Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
Well, I don't know how many of the rest of you were in the same boat as Derek and I, but boy, some thunderstorms came through during the meeting. Every time the thunder went off, Zoom would go, "Hey, your microphone's off. If you're talking, you should unmute." I was amazed. I kept internet all night. So that concludes our meeting. I did have the dates wrong for our tentative get together again. So we can't get together this weekend because we know we're going to get more of the same this weekend. But October 8th and 9th, Friday and Saturday, we're going to try again. Hopefully the weather gods will smile on us and find favor. Everybody stop buying new astronomy equipment because I'm sure that's what's attracting all of the bad weather. So thank you everyone tonight for presenting, and for the board members for all of your hard work this month, and for our members who are sticking with us through the Zoom years of CFAS. We will eventually get back to meeting under a planetarium. I'm looking forward to that. Having Derek do a live planetarium show is one of my favorite things to do at an astronomy club. It's like having a free planetarium show, right? Good night, everybody. Have a great month. Stay safe, be nice, and brush your teeth. Have a great one. Bye-bye.